Okay, everyone, break's over. Time to go back to work and to welcome Gilles BABINET. Gilles BABINET is the president of the Nous, and he's an entrepreneur. He made, what, 8, 9, 10, 8 startups, 6 books. I mean, you know, you have a lot of things to share and to say to the world. You are a defender of integrating digital technologies into the education system to reduce inequalities. You emphasize vocational training and skills development to adapt to the evolution of work. You spend a lot of time focusing on the environmental impact on smart cities, and this is basically what you want to talk today. And of course, digital sovereignty and personal data protection are the key values you've been sharing throughout your entire career. Thank you to be here. Thank you to delivering a talk about ecology and environment. It's not always easy because this is quite a specific topic. And you know, we have here open source washing, so we try not to do greenwashing either. So how to do not greenwashing about open source washing? This is kind of complicated. Do you prefer sitting here or staying at the? Sitting's perfect. So we have, I believe, something around 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. So the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Really pleased to be here, especially to talk about my favorite topic, which is AI and environment, or should I say environment and AI. There's been some quite challenging time for the environment recently, especially with the election of Donald Trump. It's obvious to everyone. And one key announcement which was actually made today is this 500 billion actually investment made by, if I'm not wrong, by SoftBank and OpenAI. What is interesting is that the investment is supposed to happen in, I believe, Texas or somewhere close, probably, and where the energy is obviously one of the most carbonated in the US. Should you do that in the Washington state, it's quite different because there is a lot of hydropower over there, but obviously they don't care much, and in itself it tells a lot about what wants to do Microsoft or some of the big players behind this investment in terms of commitment, net zero commitment. I think it's interesting to try to understand what is actually going on the AI, I would say, energy scene, because there's been a lot of announcements recently, and some are probably not quite well understood by the key players. Regarding, I would say, the technical trends, the new series Blackwell has a range of efficiency compared to the H100, which is in between 30 and 300, depending on whether you talk about learning or inference. So in itself, it proves that it goes much faster than the Moore's law, like probably 20 times faster, because there were only a year in between H100 and the Blackwell series, which show that in itself, the industry is capable of providing a lot of improvements regarding the efficiency of its systems. I'm not telling that we are not foreseeing a very strong increase of energy consumption from the AI infrastructure. I'm just saying that one cannot really foresee the potential of gain from the technology enhancement within the next couple of years that may come from the industry, mostly from NVIDIA. So that's one thing. The second thing which I believe is interesting is that we have a lot of announcement, RFP, commitment for new data centers in AI. And talking to the key players, like the one who are behind the big LLMs, it's interesting because those say that there is a clear bubble in the space. That if should all the RFP go to their concretization, we would have much more capabilities of computing that we would probably need. The thing is, so far, and actually the today's announcement is really in that perspective, everybody wants basically to be the leader of the space, because it's no more about, it's not only about, I would say, innovation, it's a lot of what we call blitzscaling, meaning that winner takes all. The more you're able to, I would say, discourage the other to invest, the better you are in a position of leading the race. And it's been around for like years, and actually it's interesting to see that the venture fund, or should I say the investment fund that's behind this new investment is SoftBank, and notoriously SoftBank is the one who makes some bets not on the most advanced technology, but on the most capable team or CEO of scaling up if should they invest some money in a given company. So it's not only about, I would say, the smartness or the innovative capabilities of the teams. It's a lot about brutal capitalism, so to say. And we should understand that. And I think the antitrust supervision should see that as well, meaning that everything that we are actually seeing is leading to, I would say, a duopoly, or a scene where you have like maybe 3 to 5 players that are most likely the same than the one which existed right before, on top of OpenAI, which is obviously a new player, even though it's very close to Microsoft. So this is, I think, something that we should understand. And in terms of environment, what it would probably lead to is something where we may see in the next 3 to 4 years some disinvestments in the field. I think that there are 3 reasons to believe that. First, as I just mentioned, there are too much investment, and we don't need, at least in everything which is about model learning, that much capabilities. For instance, if you take companies such as Mistral, the way they do their investment, their models is they pre-buy the H100, they do the model, and they resell the models to CoreWeave or other players, or like those type of players, when they don't need anymore those calculation capabilities. And so these players, they see the offering coming to them, and they realize that there is obviously a lot of offers, and it doesn't scale up. Even though there are a lot of new startups on the scene willing to do some new models, if you count the potential of startups, it doesn't match the offering. Actually, the offering is much larger than the needs of this startup. So that is for one. For two, there is the efficiency of the models, coming both from the hardware and from the software, and we can see that every day. The last Chinese model has been made by an investment of $5.5 million, which is like nothing compared to the big the big models from Meta, for instance. And this might rebate the scene in itself. So that's for two, the efficiency of the processor and the software. And I believe that there might be a third argument, which I believe is quite interesting, is new forms of architectures. Until probably since over the last 25 years, we've been progressively accustomed to use scalable architectures based on cloud. So everybody has been going cloud, and it's great, it's scalable, it's very efficient, all the arguments that everybody knows. But if you think about it for AI, it has a lot of bottlenecks, issues. And one is that it's expensive to run centralized servers. So the one architecture that we see and we foresee actually as having quite high potential is hybrid architectures, where, for instance, all the NLP is made on the smartphone, and more, actually. Some models are able to do a little bit more. And you would use what is centralized only for what requests heavy calculation. And it's interesting because that would, I would say, remove a lot of load on the centralization. If you look at my smartphone, it's a N24, and this smartphone has a very small GPU, which is able to do some translation. So I can talk to my smartphone in French or in English, and it would translate in Chinese almost instantly. You can go in fly mode, and that would still work. So it's quite efficient to that extent. And if you think about it, you could connect it to a strong data center and just send some voice parameters that would remove a lot of calculation from the centralized data center. That's for one, and on longer run, we could have an evolution that would go for something that would be more like of some fog architecture. For instance, should I want to, let's say, synchronize a meeting with one of my friends, I don't need a centralized server. I can go directly to have an arbitrage in between my personal LLM and him, and therefore to agree on a date and an hour without having any centralized server in between. So that's probably some things that would happen on the long run. And in terms of energy efficiency, it's probably much better, not only because I would say it would decentralize the calculation, but because the coders that would develop such architectures, they would care for saving the energy and the processing time, because they know that in here, the maximum energy that I can deliver, it's only 3 watts. So you have to deal with 3 watts. And the constraint would create the offering, which hasn't been the case, actually, for the big LLM so far. We don't really care about the energy. And should this have been the main constraint, I believe that we would have been better at building architectures that would have been more energy saving so far. So that, I believe, are the 3 parameters that we should have in mind regarding environmental AI in itself. And it's a little bit difficult to foretell any kind of future in the AI space, because it's going so fast that you would have a certain innovation that would pop up in any given place or any given country that would derail completely your predictions. But talking to many of the players on the scene, I think that one of these, 2 of these, or maybe the 3 of these parameters are probably to be true in the next couple of years. So we should keep this in mind, especially for those who are investors, because I believe that these are key parameters. So this is for green AI. And I don't know if we have time enough to talk about AI for green, which is another topic as
please.
well.
No, we do still have time.
Okay, good. And obviously the big question, and which has been shadowed by green AI, are the fact that all these LLM are burning a lot of energy and increasing the carbon emission of all these hyperscalers companies. I think we should still have in mind that it's very efficient, actually. It's in terms of efficiency on systems, it's one of the most efficient thing I can see on the long run, or maybe on the middle range run, to probably have some carbon levy or saving in the next couple of years. So just, I just want to give you a few examples. Autonomous cars. A car system in any given city, in any country you can think of, the usage rate, it's 7%, meaning that you are here listening to me, your car is obviously not being used by anyone, so it's a waste of financial capital, it's a waste of space, it's a waste for the environment, and the potential, as seen by the analyst and most probably by Elon Musk, is to take this 7% rate and to take it to like 25–30%. And if you think about it, it's like increasing by a factor of 4 the usage, meaning that that would completely change the world we live in. We would need much less space for cars. We would have much less energy used to build cars, and we could also increase the rate of passengers in those cars, meaning that we could create some robo-taxis, to mention the trademark of Tesla, that would be used 24/7, and that would have, instead of having like one person driving a car, having like potential 7 passengers in it, optimizing the traffic and the routes in between two places. I think it's quite obvious to understand that it's very efficient in terms of environment to develop such a system. The second aspect on which I believe is interesting, it's on supply chain. For those who have worked on supply chain, I did actually in the past, I was really appalled by the inefficiency of the system. It's completely inefficient. You wouldn't believe how inefficient it is at large. For instance, if you take a truck which is delivering items or goods in cities, the average workload of the truck is 23%. So it's like 77% empty. And the goal is obviously to increase this ratio so that it can save energy and have less truck in cities. So that's one of the promise of predictive supply chains that would mostly rely on AI. I could go on and on and on and mention industry, farming and agriculture as well, housing, living, working. On each of these places, we would be really surprised to see that the ratio of usage are very low and could be easily increased by the use of AI in general. So it's a breakthrough. And the key question, I think, for you and for us is where should stand Europe to that extent? I've been pushing with little success actually so far for the idea that we could decouple from the US and have a different vision. You might have seen that the CSRD is It's the regulation of the environmental regulation pushed by the European Union regarding any kind of externalities that any corporation would do. There are strong critics of the CSRD because it creates a burden of bureaucracy for these players. We should have thought about platformizing CSRD, API, AI, and therefore we would shift the level playing field of Europe in a completely different space. We would be able to say anyone who wants to play within the European players and sell some product into in Europe should be compatible with CSRD. And given that we have a ratio of efficiency of energy efficiency for any euro produced in Europe, which is far better than the US and China, that would be clearly beneficial to Europe. So that's the plan. But to this plan to work, we need two things. We need to let European citizens to understand what is the vision behind, and we need to platformize instead of bureaucratize the system. It's very feasible. And I think that the one thing which I would be a little bit worried or skeptical about what does the EU is the difficulty to explain to everyone the long-run vision. If Europe has something to say, it's now or ever, because we are lagging behind, much behind the US. And instead of copying the US, we should decide on our own roots and using AI and the technology in general to define what we want to do. I think the average, the will of most of the European citizens and the intention is very much tied to the notion of environment. Would you poll the European citizens, you would be surprised to see that it really differs from the US citizen to that extent. And therefore, it's probably something which is politically bankable at one condition, which is that it doesn't create some additional complexity towards the corporation, the startup, and the average citizen. So we probably mid-journey to that extent. We still need to increase and to understand that AI doesn't come on top. It's a political object, and it has to be used as such. So that's the idea.
If I can take some time for a few questions it raised within me. You said, many things, and thank you for your intervention. You said it was very feasible to go from bureaucracy to platformization, especially when it comes to, you mentioned the CSRD, and this shows how it's easy, could be easy for, Europe to deregulate sometime, and, creating, lack of trust in the regulation and lack of endorsement in the regulation. So you were saying that it was very feasible to go to the platformization mode, and I find that quite interesting. My question would be, how? Especially when, we are heading to the Action Summit, there are, outputs that I've been discussing, especially a foundation that tends to create all this vision about commons and open source, and so in a sense, paving the way for platformization. So if it's feasible, would you mind give us a little bit more details on what would be, how should we do that?
I don't pretend that I have a clear vision on that, but I think that there are a few things which are probably to be kept in mind to succeed. Like close to 10 years ago, I worked on the cookie directive, and I kept saying to the regulators, or the one who were actually having the pen writing the law, I was telling them, we should have a Git along with the draft of the law, because it's much more about coding and much less about regulating, actually. And they would really disagree with me and say, you know, we just are here to define the key principle, and then the industry would adapt. And actually, you don't stop clicking on accept or reject cookies and so on. You never read what's behind. If we had had this approach, probably you would be now setting once for all what you are ready to agree with your external media or platform or a website that you visit the most, or any kind of actually media. You would set it in your navigator or in your operating system, and that would be done. But no one has thought about code as law, you know, regulation by the coding instead of coding by the regulation. It's probably a little bit of a provocation, because 99% of the people I spoke to then were having some law background instead of coding background. I was one of the very few who had no law background and quite a bit of coding background. But it was fairly clearly not understood. More recently, the Commission came with this idea of how do they call that? Data space, which is basically a kind of, I don't know, experiencing relationship in between the Commission and startups to create some new forms of, I would say, standardization. I don't know if it's successful or not. I think it's a little bit painful, but we should be much more audacious if we want to be successful to that extent. And I think, you know, one key thing, if we want to succeed, we must decide to take risk. And not risk as like investing more in startups. Certainly we should do that. But also the way we bet on the future. What we want to do in between all the European countries, and how do we levy or use the technology to succeed in that vision.
I mean, and this will be my last question before we go to the next panel, but that you mentioned vision and doing things on our own, not just following the path of the United States, and this is what was the previous roundtable about, you know, and I mentioned the fact that we do not want to aim to be the forever leader, you know, of any kind of technology we can pursue. So I would say that I deeply agree with you on the fact that we need to have a European vision that is not just, even if it's already important we have that, and I'm not here to criticize the work that has been done, but we need to move from a risk-based vision only to a, you know, kind of like a positive ethics, looking at what do we want and what are we advocating for and what is the vision for something we want to build. And I believe this is what you are trying to say. Yeah. Would that be one of the recommendations and what of the things you've been working on for the AI Summit? You know, trying to advocate for something we can desire, because this is what makes people move rather than, you know, what we can fear, even if we need to address those fears.
Recently I was to, I don't know how this is called, the Dialogue de Royaumont. Quite interesting. This year it was about AI. And I found it really interesting because it was very, you had very good speakers and everybody came from abroad, so it was really wonderful. And next year, their topic is recommencer à prendre des risques, restart to be risk-taking. And I think the topic is really great because it's the key question is, what impresses me everywhere I go in any kind of administration, whether it's the French, the EU, or any other country, the fact that probably because they have everywhere a lot of polarized opinion. There is a risk-freezing attitude which is incredibly high. So if we don't change that, it's over. It's better to start moving abroad.
How do we change that? Because changing culture is like.
The first thing is we realize that we have to do it, and then we have to agree on principles that we won't be successful anytime we try something, and that we can bet big, but it doesn't work all the time.
No, I mean, I'm aligned with that. I'm aligned with what we should do. I just realized that changing the culture is maybe not the easiest way. And what they said at the previous roundtable is like we need a new method. We need to do more bottom-up, way of doing things. And I believe that's what you've been trying to do with AI Coffee.
Yeah, Café AI is exactly that. It's basically to regain the trust of people, and not only trust, but also a sharing attitude in general. We had this idea of Café IA while there was this mission AI on which I was part of, and basically a lot of people had wonderful ideas about where we should invest and so on. And I kept saying them, it's the people first. If you don't have a common ground, belief that progress and technological progress is key, is central, it doesn't work. It won't go far. And actually, it's interesting because last year we started to, the government, the previous government started to invest accordingly to our recommendation. And the last government that lasted for only 3 months basically shut down all our recommendation. So that's the proof that you need to have, I would say, a power force, a common force coming from the citizen, if you want to keep bridging in between the government and to last not only months and not only years, but maybe decades to be successful.
Let's hope for that. Thank you so much, Gilles, for this, lengthful talk. Thank you, Gilles. Big round of applause.